Hey guys, it is Esti and Justin from N4L Media.
If you like the video you're about to watch, be sure to like the video itself and subscribe to our channel. We really appreciate it.
Enjoy the video and also don't forget to follow us on our socials at N4L Media on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
What is going on, everybody? This is your host of N4L Media, Colin Thompson. Justin Ayers is joining me for a little Thompy time in this Just In tonight. There's a lot going on in the sports world, a lot going on in the world in general. We hope everyone had a wonderful holiday, Christmas, whatever you celebrate, a happy 2022. Lots to look forward here for N4L Media, as always, this coming new year. First, guys, check out our website. Our team does a wonderful job with that. You can check out all the links to go to YouTube, listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. You can buy something for your loved ones throughout the holidays, for what's coming in the new year. Buy some hats, buy some swag, some stickers, some long sleeve shirts, some nice Columbia jackets. Stay warm through the holiday season. We got snow in the Northeast, lots of snow. But again, before we get into all that, what Justin's up to, we appreciate your support of N4L Media, and we look forward to taking this ride with you all in 2022. Justin Ayers, we got a little snow in Annapolis, Maryland, don't we?
Yeah, I think it's roughly like half a foot. It's came down pretty hard throughout the entire day. So yeah, I definitely, I haven't been outside to get the Jim Cantore situation from the ground there yet, but there's a lot of snow. Back to you, Colin.
Oh, thank you. So funny Jim Cantore stories is in a very short version is we have friends at QS, as you know, our friends over at Shots and Giggles, and they're always telling stories about the hurricanes and all the things that happen that come through town. And they would never evacuate, right? Like the locals, like you don't really evacuate, right? You just stick it out because you're a local, right? But every once in a while, when Jim Cantore would show up, they would be like, we have to evacuate. It's going to get real, because he would always be in the worst situation. So if Jim Cantore's in your town, you got to get out.
Have you ever seen the video of like, he was on like it was like South Carolina. He's doing his typical hurricane coverage, and like somebody came up and tried to run in his live shot and he kneed him right in the groin. It's an all-time Cantore.
Listen, if someone got in our live shot when we were doing Panthers camp, I mean, what if you would have done? I mean, Justin Ayers, you would have been pissed.
On site, yeah.
That was fun, man. If anybody ever hasn't checked that out yet, that's a listener of our podcast. Not any of the haters out there that Justin and I were talking about before the show. The people that have listened to our pod, and we appreciate your support again. The amount of texts and tweets and Instagram, the follows, and the merch, sending merch out over the holidays, we appreciate it all. Go back and check out the training camp interviews. I don't know how many, people could say I'm very blessed to be able to play football and make that my number one thing. But then, on the side, be able to do this and have fun. And Justin flew down, rented the car, Big J journalist from Charlotte Airport, and drove, the hour and a half to Wofford or whatever it was, and got him up in the hotel. And then he came out to practice 2 straight days and had interactions with Coach Harbaugh. And we interviewed about 6 different players. Some with the team, some are not with the team anymore. And it was fun. I mean, I did interviews post-practice. How many players do an interview post-practice, but they're actually doing the interviewing? So that was a really unique experience. So if you haven't checked that out, go back to the, through the podcast archives, since we kind of have a best of, where we took, a little bit, if not all of the snippets of the interviews that Justin and I did. And we made a podcast out of it. And then we did a bunch of YouTube stuff with it too, a bunch of vlogs with that. So Justin just absolutely killed it that week. And then we had, that was our first in-person interview with this version of N4L Media. We had Dan Arnold in the house. They've been back in Charlotte. So yeah, that's a good one to check out. I digress. Little Thompy time today, little this just in. What do you got for us, Justin?
So yeah, there's so much college football going on right now that I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about. There's 2 big things we wanted to talk about. First of all, the guys over at ESPN College Game Day, Herbstreit, Desmond Howard. So as bowl season kind of wound down, we're getting to the point now. There's so many bowl games. There's dozens of bowl games. A lot of sponsors I didn't know even existed have bowl games. But Kirk Herbstreit found himself in a little hot water online over the weekend for his quote, and I have it pulled up here. Herbstreit said, quote, "I just don't understand, if you don't make it to the playoff, how is it meaningless to play football and compete? Isn't that what we do as football players? We compete. I don't know if changing it, expanding it is going to change anything. I really don't. I think this era of player just doesn't love football." And then Desmond Howard kind of chimed in right after and kind of echoed those sentiments. And he said, when we were coming up, a bowl game was a huge reward for a fantastic season. That's what it meant. The players nowadays just don't really value bowl games. Herbstreit later clarified his comment. He said, I didn't mean to say every college football player doesn't love the game. But it generated a lot of like buzz and interaction online. And Colin, you actually sent it to me first. So what were your reactions when you heard Kirk Herbstreit's, guys don't love football comment?
Well, another problem is that he's got to clarify it. We understand what he's saying too, but that's the way of the world now. You have to clarify things. You really got to watch what you say. You get things get quoted, they get clipped, just like we're doing on here, right? And saying, hey, this is what you said. So there's a lot of takes from this. Separate the college football playoffs from this. I think they're two separate things. Obviously, players aren't sitting out of the college football playoffs. So they do coexist together, the argument of, hey, I'm going to sit out of a game that's not a BCS bowl game or college football playoff game. I saw a tweet, and I'm going to pull it up. But before I pull it up, because it's bothering me now, I was looking for the tweet before, and I couldn't follow it, but now I know who I sent it to. But essentially, my thoughts on all this are this. You have to respect the players that sit out. The game is more of a business now than it's ever been. The whole get off my lawn crowd, I get it. We miss old school college football. I miss it too. But this is a new version. There's more business being done in football now than ever. There's more life-changing finances being done now than ever. Every player situation is completely different. A lot of players I know, they have no money. Their families have no money. They decide to play a bowl game and get hurt. That money's gone. Those times are done. For example, Jalen Smith. Probably the best linebacker I've ever played against in person. I think so. I played against Jalen in college. An absolute stud. He runs fast. He's tough. He's physical. He's got all of the attributes it takes, in my opinion, to be a successful linebacker. He plays in, I think, the Fiesta Bowl against Ohio State. Because I remember the clip. And it was the lineman was blocking through the whistle. He planted, something happened. Boom. He got drop foot. Jalen Smith, he got a second contract, which is unbelievable and shows his testament, his work ethic, his ability to just ride through it and be tough. And shout out to the Dallas Cowboys for believing him and drafting him, I think, in the second round and giving him a year off and all that stuff. But that cost him so much money. He had to take it. He took an insurance policy out of himself. He would have been a top 10 pick. A lot like a Micah Parsons situation here. Micah Parsons didn't even play last year, folks. Let's remember that too. He sat out the entire year. Great for his body, great for his mindset. So it cost Jalen, I don't know, $50 million maybe. That's what he would have made. First round pick plus endorsements, plus, the ceiling of being a Dallas Cowboy and a middle linebacker and what his second contract could have been. He still got to a second contract and he played with drop foot and he played with all these things. And now I don't know if his career's over or not, but he obviously got cut by Dallas. I believe he got cut by Green Bay when they re-signed him. And I think Jalen could be a free agent. I don't know. Don't quote me on that. But he's a great player, was and is a great player, but is a shell of himself because of that injury he got in that bowl game. Now, we can get injured anytime. I get that. It's football. It's 100% injury rate. What I'm saying is this. You have to respect players for what they decide. They are human beings. We are not robots. They are human beings. They are making decisions for their family, for themselves. They have a scholarship. They lived out all the expectancy of that scholarship and they decide to move on. Fine. You want to find a way to make it? And I can't find the tweet. I apologize to everyone. But the tweet is saying that, hey, you want the best players to play in the bowl games? Start cutting them in on the NIL deal with it. So you want a quarterback that's going to be a first round pick? Is the Pittsburgh quarterback playing Pickett?
No, he didn't. He sat out of his bowl game.
Yeah. So he sat out of the bowl game, and that's where the tweet came from. And I'll give the gentleman credit later. I forget where it was, and that's on me. I apologize, but we'll tweet it out. But essentially, he said, well, you want to find a way to make them play, cut them in on the deal. If it's the Goodyear Bowl, cut them in. Give them 10 grand, 15 grand, 20 grand. Find a way to, have them do appearance situations, have them to be paid for all that stuff. Build that into the NIL. Why not? The players can make it now. Now it's a new way. NIL, we think, has evolved a ton and is way more than we thought, but add the bowl games in now, it's a way different deal. They're just scratching the surface. So it's not good enough anymore just for the, shout out to Best Buy, $150 Best Buy gift card and a bowl suite, which you get a recliner and a guitar, which are all awesome stuff for a college kid you're really excited about. But times have changed, whether they're good, bad, or indifferent for the fans. The viewership's awesome. The support is awesome, COVID or not. So again, I digress. I went all over the place in the bowl game situation, but essentially my thoughts on the bowl games are this: everyone's individual. They can make their own decision. You are a business entity now. You are not just pull the ticket, college football player, wait your 3 years, play 2 years, try to go to the NFL, start your job. It is way different now. You're a business entity more now than ever. It was not the case before. So I'm supportive of guys that sit out. I'm supportive of guys that played. I played in my bowl game. I was an undrafted free agent. I was not a first round pick. But if you're going to be a first round pick and you're going to play in your bowl game, I'm talking about me personally. If I'm going to be a top 10 pick, I don't know if I'm playing in that bowl game. If I'm a guaranteed first round pick, I don't know if I'm playing in the bowl game. So I'm not going to. I'll make it clear. So that's my take, Justin. I was all over the place with it, but I'm for it. I think the injuries could be absolutely detrimental. You got to make your money while you can. Football is a short-lived game, especially with the 100% injury. What do you got, Justin?
No, I mean, I can see both sides of this issue because, will it rub some people the wrong way if the star player like Kenneth Walker from Michigan State or Kenny Pickett from Pitt, will it rub some people the wrong way? Will people call those guys selfish because they're not going to be playing with their team in the bowl game where 99% of the guys on that roster probably won't play football at the next level? And they're passing up an opportunity to ride it out one last time with their guys. Like, yeah, I could see how that would be considered selfish or people would look down upon that. But you're right. It is a business decision. Why would you want to risk, having an injury and missing out on the NFL? But going back to Herbstreit's comments real quick, he said that he was comparing the eras where him and Desmond Howard came up and versus today, where he said that there's so many more distractions and it's just way different and that the love and the passion for the game might not necessarily be there across the board. Do you subscribe to that? Because I don't know. I mean, yeah, some guys are obviously, the passion might not be for strictly football. They might have other outside business ventures, but like when you hear that, like, what do you say?
Yeah. So that was the other part of the argument. And I was looking up that tweet because it's driving me crazy. So I don't subscribe to it. The way they loved football, the way they thought they loved football back in the day, the old school way is the right way and all that get off my lawn crowd. That is different, just like it was different for their parents that played football or played athletics or for whatever it was, right? Every group looks down on the group behind them and says, well, it was better when we played. But you know what? The game's still around. It's still a great game. It still has awesome fundamentals about teamwork and individual success and team success. And now it's got business aspects to it and you're learning a ton. What are we all trying to do here, folks? Move forward, start life better than, the generation before had it, right? That's your goal your parents had for you as a person. I'm sure I'm very lucky my parents had that for me. And I wouldn't be the person or the as knowledgeable as I think I am today. Now I'm nowhere near where I need to be if I didn't play college sports. And again, I'm all over the place, but my point is there's still love and there's still tons of passion for the game of football. You don't play college football if there's not love and passion. Just because people post a picture, just because people take a video, just because people go about it a little bit differently and you're more visible now than ever does not mean that you don't love the game of football. Has absolutely nothing to do with it. Because at the end of the day, you got to put your face on someone else who's running right at you to do the same thing you're trying to do to them. And if you're going to spring ball, like all of us did in college football, we all know how tough that is. It's 15 practices, 3-hour time limit or whatever it was. and you beat the heck out of each other because the season's 6 months away. Before that, you had the hardest thing of your life, the off season in January and February. It's literally the toughest thing I've ever done. And you get the crap beat out of you. You build the team, you build toughness, you build character, you build all the things you need to do to be successful. So you don't just do all that stuff for fun. You're not just running, jogging, and maybe get a couple curls in and you're out. No, you got to go to school. If you play football, you have tutors. You have all these different things. You got to be at breakfast check at 6 a.m. You got to be lifted done by 7. You have to finish your lift and then be class by 10. And then when your classes are over at 5, you got to be mandatory dining hall. You got to weigh in. You got to make sure your weight's great. You got to make sure you drank enough water that day to make your weight. You got to make sure that you ate enough at training tables so your weight's high enough. And then guess what happens after you're done in the training table, eating dinner? You're either with a tutor or you're in the facility watching film. Right? I mean, that's the life of a student athlete. That's the extreme version of the schedule, but that's the schedule half the year. So, yeah, I don't believe it. I don't subscribe to it one bit. Sure, they're a little more public now than ever, the athlete, but to say these people don't care or don't love the game as much as they did, you can argue the game's harder now than it's ever been. You're more public now than you ever been. You're more visible now than you ever been. The things they got away with back in the day, you can't even get near now. So there's much more pressure. There's much more, there's tons more eyes. So I'm rambling on today, Justin, per usual. What are your thoughts on the love of the game from your perspective, from a fan's perspective, from a media member's perspective?
I think you're right. I think you can still love the game, but also have things going on outside of the game, like NIL stuff. And Kirk, when he was doing his argument, yeah, exactly. Like he's like, oh, these kids have their cell phones, and I love Kirk Herbstreit. And the other thing that came, he's the best. But the other thing that came up online with him was people were saying, oh, Kirk works for ESPN, and the only reason he's angry about these guys opting out of bowl games largely televised on ESPN is that he's upset because viewership will be down in what was it, the Peach Bowl where Kenny Pickett didn't play. Like, yeah, people are saying, oh gosh, like these guys are just mad that they're going to lose out on ad revenue because people aren't going to tune in. Like, I don't think that was how their take came about. No. I legitimately think that they, in their mind, like, and Kirk and Desmond's mind, like, they see the discrepancies between the two generations of college football, and they're probably not the most happy about it. But I think it has nothing to do with they're like ESPN corporate shills that only care about working for the network and viewership.
Well said. I don't tie those two together either. I think people spend too much time thinking about that. I think there's some fun. It's a fun conversation. Like, oh, they're just worried about the ratings, right? The ratings are getting crushed. Listen, Kirk Herbstreit and those guys are getting paid, and they work their asses off. All of them work extremely hard, right? They wear 10 different hats, and they do a bunch of different things, and they're extremely successful, and they're really good at their job. I'm not coming at them. I'm coming at their words. I'm coming at their belief in the sense that there's not as passion. There's not as much love for the game. I could argue now there's more love for the game than ever. Yeah, you get your body taken care of a little bit better than they did back in the day, for sure. They had 2-a-days and 3-a-days. You really had to love the game. I get it. But now everything you do, the eyes are on you as an athlete. It's much different than it was back then. So I hate to compare decades. I hate to compare, all these different time periods, because it's a different game every time. Every 5 or so years, it's a whole new game. The scheme's changed. It's still the same scheme, but there's the RPO, run pass option now. That's big, right? The quarterback runs are big. The evolution of the person has changed tremendously. The size of people, the speed. You see it on display in college football every weekend, which we'll get into in a little bit here. I think we're going to segue over to the Final Four.
Yeah. So actually, did you want to talk about Matt Corral real quick? I mean, that was the other big story from the weekend. Ole Miss quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah, he got dinged up in the game, and we were in New Orleans while the game was going on. We came in, we flew in, we're taking the buses right through. All the Ole Miss people, all the Baylor people, the fans are pouring into the stadium, and that was really cool. I tuned in after he got hurt, and I don't watch a ton of college football anymore, sadly, because usually we're traveling on Saturdays, or I'm grabbing a quick nap at a home game before we go to the team hotel, so I'm not able to watch enough. But that backup was pretty good. Again, I don't watch enough. People are probably like, yeah, no crap, that's so and so. But I was impressed by him. He was scrambling. He was tough. They were playing tough. Baylor's a good team. Obviously, Coach Rule was there. He recruited a lot of those players. 90% of them, probably 80% of them. So I'm a Baylor fan at heart. My wife graduated from there with her master's degree. So sick and bears. But yeah, I mean, there's an example of someone that got hurt, and I'll make it clear. You're going to get hurt in football games. It's the risk that we all take, know, and love. So that's another reason, say, the love of the game's out there. You know you're going to get hurt in this game. 100% injury rate. You are going to break a bone, tear something. It's going to happen. So you can't say the love's not there if you're willing to do that. So no, I think it's thanks for bringing that up, Justin. I think you're going to get hurt in any game. And obviously it's tough to see him go down like that in that fashion in a big bowl game like that. Ole Miss, Baylor, two programs that have turned around drastically, and coaches that have done a great job doing so. So what are your thoughts on it?
I mean, people were freaking out because obviously the guy got carted off. Matt Corral, first of all, he said he wanted to play in that game, just one last ride with the fellas. He said he wouldn't be at the place he is today if he wasn't for the guys he's on his team and his teammates. So I thought that was a really cool thing. And you're right. It goes back to what you said earlier. It's 100% some person's individual choice. Like, he could have sat out. He's probably going to be like the top 2 quarterback taken in the board in this draft coming this year. But he loved the team so much he wanted to come back. But yeah, when people saw him get carted off, Twitter was red hot with the hot takes were flying. Luckily, the guy only had an ankle sprain and he's going to be completely fine. Like, that's not going to impact his draft. So that was one thing people were concerned about. But yeah, I think it just comes down to individual choice. Like, he didn't have to play, but he did. And thank God he didn't get hurt.
He played all of his right. So here's another thing for the guys that sit out, right? Like, here's the schedule that comes out before the season. It doesn't say bowl game. It says conference, whatever. It says you're out of conference play, your conference play, conference championship. That's always on there. Whether you're predicted to finish last or first, the conference championship's always on your schedule, right? The first week in December or whatever it is. I just have no issue with guys sitting out. None. Because there's an example. Say he breaks his ankle, or say he gets a high ankle sprain, which people say is worse than an ankle break, right? We saw it this year with CMAC, Christian McCaffrey with the ankle injury. It's very tough on them. They're brutal. Ankle injuries are really tough. So ankle sprains could be worse than a break. So, I don't. Yeah, I go back to it. I have no problem. I mean, think about where his draft stock was, where it could be, and is it going to stay the same? But that's one more red flag he's got to deal with. So you finished your time as a player. Now I'm ready to be a professional. I'm healthy. I don't need any more ailments. I already have enough. Because when you go into these draft preps, when he's at the combine, they're x-raying that foot. He's getting that ankle MRI'd by a ton of people. And every team doctor, all 32 of them, are looking at that MRI and saying, here are our thoughts. He's cleared medically. He's not cleared medically. He's dinged here. He's dinged there. Obviously, the more teams are interested in you, the higher you go drafted. So there's a lot behind it. It's not all about, it's about the player. It's about them. They're human beings. We are human beings, not robots. So.
Love that. I thought that was perfectly said. Yeah, I mean, we could transition to the 2 college football playoff bowl games, the ones that the players don't opt out of, the ones that actually matter. First, the Cotton Bowl Classic. Alabama beat Cincinnati 27-6. I think everybody kind of saw ahead of time where this game was eventually going to go. Alabama had this one figured out. They said Cincinnati is the second-ranked pass defense in the country. We're going to go old school. We're going to ground and pound. And that's what they did. 47 times they rushed it for 300 yards. And their running back, Brian Robinson, set an Alabama bowl game record for 204 yards by himself. Colin, Cincinnati was outmatched this entire game. We talked about the whole non-power 5 make it into the college football playoff. What was your take? Is it a nice story that they made it? And just not all conferences are created equal after this?
Well, I think not all teams are created equal. Not all conferences are created equal, right? I think you got a Cincinnati who runs the table. They beat a really good Notre Dame team. Boom, you're in, right? And they also had a great year the year before. So you need to follow it up, right? You can't go undefeated one year and expect to make it. You need 2 years. You need to have 22 wins, and then you're in a row. No, No, credit to them. Credit to Coach Fickle and the staff and the players and the organization. It's just awesome for Cincinnati. It's awesome for the American Athletic Conference. Sadly, they are leaving that conference, a conference that I was proudly a part of and absolutely loved, and had some great games against Navy and Houston and UCF and USF. Some awesome battles over the years. So ECU. So when the conference at its best, it's a really good conference. When all those teams can be really good, when they're all at their best together, which we kind of were throughout my time there. When UCF was in their heyday, there were some really good teams below them. Houston was at the top. We were at the top one year. UCF won it a bunch of years in a row. I think about, and I saw a former buddy of mine tweet this at Florida about just about some of the UCF teams that would have given maybe a little bit better shot at Alabama. Maybe. Those UCF teams were really good. I think they were. Obviously with Milton and a lot of different players, when they were healthy and rolling, they were really good. That offense was really explosive. But I just think, like you said, Alabama just chose to win this way. I still think Alabama could have went to the air and done a lot of things too. Again, I didn't watch the full game, but in what I saw, you just saw those players from Cincinnati playing their asses off, coaching their asses off, right? But at the end of the day, you're playing the greatest college football coach, the greatest coach ever, Nick Saban. And then you're playing an Alabama team that has 5 stars across the board, 4 stars across the board, and Cincinnati may have a handful. So, it's not X's and O's, they say in football. It's Jims and Joes, and the players get it done. And if you have the horses that Alabama does and the depth behind them, like I talked about before, and I talk about all the time with these American Athletic Conference teams, schools like a Coastal or an App State, they have great starters. There'll be 1 or 2 holes in the lineup that you could say, well, maybe they're not a starter, but it's still a good player. The issue is who's behind them. So as the atrophy of a college football season goes on, you're going to lose starters. Is what happens. At Alabama, it's plug and play. At Cincinnati, it's you got to hope you have depth in that position. And that's what, again, I'm not speaking for Cincinnati. I don't know that team that well. I just know the conference, and that's how usually it is in smaller football, smaller, conference ball. So that's my take. Credit Cincinnati. They did a great job. They deserve to be in. They hung tough with the greatest college football team, in college football history at some point, at least a dynasty that we're a part of and we're seeing right now. And Nick Saban, 15 years ago today, he took the job in Alabama. He's cost a lot of people their job.
Yeah, I think it's a great story that they got there. People were saying online that game, even though the score was it 27-6, like it felt closer than a lot of college football playoff bowl game blowouts were. Like the Notre Dame Alabama one comes to mind, and a lot of the other Alabama first round games. Like this game kind of felt like Cincy was in it the entire time, which you can't say that about every one of them. But yeah, it's just, it was a Belichickian like dismantling of Cincinnati. It's like, oh, you're really good at defending the pass, run 50 times.
Yep. Nick Saban knows what he's doing. I think that's pretty clear.
The Orange Bowl was the nightcap on Friday. Georgia throttled Michigan 34-11. Georgia scored on each of its first 5 possessions, and they never punted. And then they were up 27-3 at the half. It was, as somebody who bet on Michigan to cover the spread, it hurt my heart a little bit. But
and your wallet.
And it hurt my wallet a little bit too. I really wanted Michigan to win. I love Jim Harbaugh. I'm a Harbaugh fan, a whole Harbaugh family fan. Does this silence the critics of Jim Harbaugh though? I don't think anybody expected Michigan to be the number 3 team in the country. Like, people love to crap all over Jim Harbaugh, but as Harbaugh fans, as I think we both are, like, does this buy him a little time away from getting criticized?
I've been a Harbaugh supporter the whole time. I had some buddies that Mike Schofield's a Michigan guy. His wife's Kendall Coyne Schofield, the star USA women's hockey player. But Mike and I were here in Carolina together last year, and Big Blue, Mike would always defend it, and we would go debating about different coaches. And my argument to keep Harbaugh was, who else are you going to hire? Who else are you going to hire for that job? That he's the perfect guy for that job. First off, he's had success coaching. He's had a success playing in college, playing in the NFL. He's had success coaching in college, coaching in the NFL. Not just normal success. We're talking getting to Super Bowls. That is hard to do. Winning is a whole other level, but getting there is hard enough. So, and he's a Michigan grad. He is true blue. I get it. You're a fan base like Florida who wants to win right away. Dan Mullen, 3 out of the last 4 years, he goes to a Power Six. He goes to a Power Six, he goes to New Year's Eve, New Year's Six bowl game. Thank you, Justin. That's why you're the man, JA. That's Justin, and he gets fired. He gets fired this year. So, yeah, I get why you want to get him out and all these different things, but yes, I think it buys him time. Should buy him time. It also buys him some serious feather in his cap in the recruiting trail. You can now go to Ohio State territory and compete a little bit more. I'm not saying you're going to win against Ryan Day. He was a great recruiter. He recruited me to Boston College. He was exceptional. I loved Ryan. They were my first offer. He was a great guy. He's a great coach, obviously, and I'm a big fan and support him. And I support Harbaugh because I love when people are haters and then it ends up, boom, blowing up in their face. That's the best, right? You got to love it. So good for Harbaugh. They got to the Final Four. Good for Coach Fickell. It's awesome for them, their families, the program. So it's awesome. The ripple effect of the success in college football is fun for me to watch. It's what I enjoy.
Quick correction. Michigan was the number 2 team in the country, not number 3. Also, I didn't know Ryan Day recruited you to Boston College. Like that hasn't come up in any of our things. We have to talk about that later.
Yeah, I've been lucky. Him, Dan Quinn, defensive coordinator, former head coach of Atlanta, DC at Cowboys. Yeah, we could have an episode on that, but
we got to do recruiting stories.
Yeah.
National championship real quick. So Georgia, Alabama, the Bulldogs will try to end a 7-game losing streak to Alabama. This will be played out next Monday night. How do you see this playing out? I see another Crimson Tide W.
Oh, I mean, obviously, right. Georgia beats him. Wait, did Georgia beat him in the regular season?
No, they haven't beat him in a while.
They haven't beat him. Wow.
SEC championship.
I'm sorry, SEC championship. Bama beat him. Right, Georgia looked like the shoe in number 1 seed right there. Then now I'm back on track. Top defense, all this great stuff. All of a sudden, here comes Alabama and the boys. Not the best team they've had in years. Still a great team, but not the most dominant regular season team like we've seen before. What do I think is going to happen? Oh man, it's going to be a close game. It's going to be a close game. It has to be, right? It's hard to beat people twice. It's hard to beat, this is a former assistant in Kirby Smart that knows Nick Saban really well. Will Muschamp's on that staff as a defensive kind of, I don't even know if he's chief of staff or whatever Coach Muschamp is, but a great addition. Again, he was my coach at Florida and he head coach of South Carolina and a great defensive mind. He coached with Nick Saban with the Miami Dolphins. They all know Nick. But again, it's Jimmy's and Joe's, not X's and O's. The coaches call plays for players. They're not calling things for ego or whatever it may be. So, like you said, they're all going to try to exploit each other's weaknesses. They all come from the same tree of coaching, which we all end up really trying to do anyway. Some are just better executing it than others. So, it's a great question, Justin. I'm going to go Alabama. I think you have to. I don't think you can really vote against them, pick against them. I don't think you can.
You don't get rich betted against Alabama is what I've heard. Also, Will Muschamp is the co-defensive coordinator at Georgia.
There you go. I know he was like something with the DBs. Maybe last year he had a smaller role. Last year he was at South Carolina. He got let go. There's so many moving pieces of college football.
It's the best. I think it's more fun to follow than most other sports. I'm not going to go out and say it's like the best sport ever, but it's so much fun.
There's so much to it. There's so much to it. Now with the transfer portal and NIL and coaches moving, there's a lot. Quick shout out, Chris Wiesahan. Coach Drayton, congrats on the job at Temple. First off, we haven't done that formally here. Really excited for Coach Drayton. Temple football, the future is bright. I hear awesome things about Coach. Coach Ed Foley coached with him before throughout the college ranks, and Coach Foley and I are very close, and had nothing but good things to say about Coach Sean Drayton. So congrats to you, Coach. Congrats to Temple University. You found your guy. I'm excited to see what the future holds for Temple. Side note, Chris Wiesahan left Georgia Tech to head back to Philly, and coach would coach Sean Drayton and his staff at Temple. Coach Wiesahan was the O-line coach and running backs coach when I was at Temple. A great, brilliant football mind. He's coaching the NFL. He's going back to Temple. Coached a lot of great players, a lot of great offensive linemen, including Pro Bowler Deion Dawkins. Shout out to Deion for the Pro Bowl in Buffalo. So, yeah, really happy for what's going on at Temple.
That's awesome. Yeah, I completely forgot they just hired a new head coach. Yeah, was he one of the Coach Rule disciples, or what was his background?
Yeah, part of Coach Rule tree was brought in with Coach Rule there, and I transferred in. He was already there. I don't know where Coach Wees was before that, but I know he bounced around. I know he was the O-line coach for the Bucks at one point in time back in the day. And then he went to Georgia Tech with Jeff Collins. He stayed on the Temple staff with Jeff Collins. Jeff retained him, and then he went to Georgia Tech. He coached tight ends. I know he coaches O-line as well, and now he's going back to Temple. So awesome news.
Love that. All right, well, that's all I have, sir.
An awesome episode. We appreciate it, man. Justin Ayers, the man himself. This just in, little Thompy time. Again, we appreciate everybody tuning in. It's been a blast. There's lots to look forward to in 2022. Some new fun interviews are coming that I think a lot of people are going to enjoy. And a little more interaction, a little more videos, a little more YouTube, a little bit more of everything. We appreciate, again, your support. Check out the website, notforlongmedia.com. That's Justin Ayers. I'm Colin Thompson. Thanks for tuning in, guys. One more thing before we go. My apologies. It's Coach Stan Drayton. Coach Stan Drayton at Temple University. Coach Drayton, congrats to you, your staff, your family. An awesome opportunity to come to the big city of Philadelphia and coach big-time college football at Temple University. Playing at Lincoln Financial Field doesn't get much better than that. We are so excited as former players to be back involved in the program and get to know you, your staff, your family, everything that you stand for. We see what you're doing on social media already. I'm hearing awesome things on the recruiting trail as well. So really excited for you guys to meet the staff, to get back into that building, get training there in the off season, get around the players, get to know everybody again, and rep that cherry and white. So congrats to Coach Drayton and the Temple House. Appreciate you guys' support.